And on Columbus Day 2025, just this past Monday, Italian-American communities across the country welcomed President Trump's proclamation reaffirming the second Monday in October as Columbus Day, a move to reclaim the explorer's legacy of faith, courage, and perseverance. But this shift comes amid a broader cultural debate. Many states and cities have replaced Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day. Well, officials behind the move claim it is to honor Native American contributions, when in reality, it's nothing of the sort. It is simply to disrespect Columbus because they don't like him. Liberals view him as a white colonialist oppressor, while they view Native Americans as just the opposite, the oppressed, even though many Native Americans killed one another and they oppressed each other. And this is not to condemn anyone. I'm not condemning Native Americans. This was their land. But at the same time, we shouldn't be condemning Columbus. Well, such is the game that many on the left have played throughout history. Meanwhile, there are already several other days honoring Indigenous peoples and Native Americans. And by the way, Indigenous peoples and Native Americans deserve the highest praise. They deserve their own days. But of course, you have many politicians who've decided to pit one against the other. And neither group, the Italians nor the Indigenous peoples, wanted to be part of that. So Columbus Day is the only day that currently honors contributions of Italian Americans, and Italian Americans are one of the largest ethnic groups in our nation. The Italian American One Voice Coalition has formed a new alliance with the Native American Guardians Association, or NAGA, to build bridges rather than deepen divides. And here to walk us through what that means and why it matters so much is Andre DiMino, who is president of the Italian American One Voice Coalition. Good to have you on, as always, Andre. Welcome.
Great to see you again, Ken. Thank you.
You bet. And this year is a kind of a special Columbus Day, if you will. Unfortunately, we didn't get the parade in New York because of the horrible weather. But why is Columbus Day still such a flashpoint?
Well, unfortunately, you really said it well. They're trying to use that to divide people instead of trying to unify. And just as you said, Columbus Day was made crystal clear this year by President Trump that it is a federal holiday. It's always been a federal holiday, and it still is. And he emphasized that it is, instead of what they're trying to do in many places where they've changed Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day, pitting one group against the other. It really shouldn't be done. And that's why we've gone out of our way to try to avoid that with a new alliance with NAGA, the Native American Guardians Association.
I'm so glad you did that. And I don't know about you. I'm sure you do too. I love American history and Native American history. I love our Native Americans. I love the culture. I love and I have never met a Native American who said, "Oh, you're a colonialist Italian." They don't. It's like, get over it. It's politicians. And by the way, they're probably on the right too, I'm sure. They're politicians who are making this an issue. Again, I'm speechless because as an Italian American, I love our Native American culture here. It's a beautiful thing. And thankfully, you got together with NAGA and you're doing this, saying, hey, we could both enjoy. Let's celebrate each other. Let's stop fighting each other. We could celebrate both. And by the way, we know that there are issues with Christopher Columbus. We get it. But nobody was perfect, including Native Americans and Christopher Columbus and MLK. And you could go back and find faults with every one of these heroes. But we could choose to dwell on the negatives, or we could dwell on the positives. And the fact is, it was the largest migration on the planet's history. By that, I mean Europe coming to what is now the U.S. because of Christopher Columbus.
Yeah, and, it's really interesting because our organization, Italian American One Voice Coalition, we're fighting the cancel culture that's going after Columbus and also the negative stereotyping of Italian Americans. And that's why NAGA was a great alliance that we formed, because their sole purpose is to educate and not eradicate. That's their saying, because they're trying to preserve the names that they want, like the Redskins and the Chiefs and so forth. So they're fighting cancel culture and we're fighting cancel culture. So this alliance works out great. And in fact, we have monthly meetings with them on Zoom, which we call the solidarity sessions, bridging cultures against cancel culture. So we're working together. We support them in trying to bring back those important names and imageries of Native Americans, and they support us in preserving Columbus Day and celebrating Indigenous peoples and Native Americans on their own days.
Yeah. Politicians in this country had canceled many Native Americans over the decades as well, taking them off
Yes.
their land, putting them onto plantations well, not plantations, excuse me. That's what we did to, unfortunately, to African Americans. We have our sins, and there's no question we have our sins, but everybody has sins in their past. And what we do about the sins is what matters. How we correct the wrongs is what makes us different from other countries. Yes, they put Native Americans onto chunks of land that weren't their land and took away their land because we wanted to build cities. It was awful. It was awful. And there was the line of tears and the trail of tears, et cetera. Awful what we did to Native Americans. But you don't fix things by erasing the past. And if there were issues with Christopher Columbus, we should talk about it. We should explain why certain things were done and why certain things were good, and have a dialogue. Guess what? I would rather sit down over a meal with anyone, Native American or anyone, and say, let's talk about it. Yeah, there are certain things that today he would never have done. Somebody would have lynched him for it. And Italians were lynched in the 1890s, right? It was the biggest lynching in American history. You talk about that history. And that was down in, I guess, Louisiana, right?
That's correct. March 14th of 1891, 11 innocent Italian Americans were lynched, as well as a mob that beat up a lot of other Italian Americans because they blamed them for a death that occurred of a police officer. And because of that, there was such a problem. And by the way, there were other lynching beside that, but that was the single largest. And because of that, there was almost a war that broke out with Italy. And that's why on October 12th of 1892, President Harrison declared the first Columbus Day celebration. And that was as an atonement or an apology to calm things down. So you see, Columbus Day has a very important role in welcoming Italian immigrants and all of our ancestors and generations before us against that discrimination and denigration and that lynching that occurred back then, that violence. And that's why Columbus Day is so important. And, you know, we have to look also at the fact that the facts about Columbus that are being spewed are not really facts. They've been disputed totally and debunked by a number of people. You know, they were perpetrated by Howard Zinn, a self-declared anarchist and Marxist that wrote a textbook where he went after our country by going after Columbus as well as our founding fathers. And his book now has been disputed, but unfortunately, it's still being used in a number of schools. And that's why we have people that still buy into these falsehoods about Columbus and about our founding fathers.
I love it. All right, Andre, what is a website for people to get more information about this and the coalition between NAGA and Italian American One Voice?
Absolutely. You could go to our website, which is IAOVC.org, which is the initials of our organization, Italian American One Voice Coalition, IAOVC.org. And then we have our Zoom meeting once a month with NAGA, and we invite everyone to be on it. It's free, no charge. And just like you said, Ken, we learn about each other. We learn about our cultures. And that's why we try to unify and not divide. So everyone join with us in unifying our country, this great fabric of America that we have.
I love what you did. And I'm sure the politicians on all sides of the spectrum are angry because they thrive when there's division, because then we have to go to them. But when you get together like this, and God bless our Native Americans and the indigenous peoples, God bless them. But God bless Italians. It's okay to celebrate our culture. And that doesn't mean we denigrate any other culture. We could celebrate everybody's culture because that's what makes us great in America. President of the Italian American One Voice Coalition, protecting the history and reputation of Italian Americans, Andre DiMino, my friend. Always a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, Ken. Good to be on with you.
Always. Thank you, sir.